Most quantum security plans come down to one sentence. We'll act when quantum actually breaks our encryption. If that's the plan, it has one fatal flaw. It waits for a day you will never be told has arrived. Every strategy that waits for Q-Day, the moment quantum computers break the public key encryption behind the internet, assumes someone will announce it. The reality is, no one will. And I can prove that to you with the last 100 years of code-breaking history, because the greatest encryption defeats in history share the same exact pattern. The winners hid them, and the people who lost didn't find out for years or decades. I'm Addie Lamar. I spent 8 of my 15 years in cybersecurity as a cryptographer in the US Air Force, on the protection side of exactly this, the discipline of guarding cryptographic secrets and the classification that surrounds a capability like a code break. By the end of this video, you'll understand why the alarm you're waiting for is never going to ring, and what to plan for instead. This channel puts you in command of the quantum transition, so you lead it while the rest of your industry is still catching up. Let's start with the first proof. Room 40, which was British naval intelligence during the First World War. They intercepted a German message now known as the Zimmermann telegram, proposing an alliance with Mexico against the United States. Publishing it would almost certainly pull America into the war, which is exactly what Britain wanted. There was one problem. If Britain revealed that telegram, Germany would realize its codes were broken and change everything to be more secure, and it would expose that Britain was quietly reading American diplomatic traffic to intercept it. They would lose the asymmetric advantage to reading the codes the Germans thought were secured. So the head of Room 40 sat on one of the most valuable intercepts of the war and told his own people that not a soul outside of that room could know. And what they did next is textbook military operations. They located a second copy of the telegram, forwarded it on to Mexico, which it was supposed to go to, and arranged for the Americans to discover that version. So Germany would blame a leak in Mexico rather than a broken cipher. This way, the break stayed hidden, the source remained protected, and Germany would keep using a code the British were able to read. So the winner of a code break has every reason to hide that they've won. Which raises a question. Was that just a wartime paranoia thing, or is it how this always goes? Fast forward to the Second World War, and the most famous code break in history. Bletchley Park cracked the German Enigma machine, and the intelligence it produced was so valuable it earned its own classification, Ultra, and it shaped the outcome of the war. Britain read Germany's encrypted communications for years, and Germany never found out. Not during the war, and not for decades after. The Enigma break stayed officially secret for nearly 30 years, until a participant finally published a book about it in 1974. An entire generation of German officers went to their graves believing their cipher had held. The side that lost had no idea it had lost for 30 years. Hiding the win is the deliberate default of every serious code-breaking operation, not a quirk of these particular stories, which brings us to the one that maps directly onto your situation. During and after the Second World War, American cryptographers ran a program called Venona. They collected Soviet cables they could not yet read, encrypted with a system meant to be unbreakable. They stored them anyways, and by the late 1940s, exploiting a Soviet mistake, they began cracking messages that had been sent years earlier. That is the quantum threat itself, decades before anyone gave it a name. Collect the encrypted traffic now and break it later. Messages the Soviets believed were safe in 1945 were being read by American analysts years after the fact, and it exposed some of the most significant spies of the era. The program stayed classified until 1995. The security world gave this a name only recently. Harvest now, decrypt later. Venona is proof the strategy is 80 years old, and proof it works. So if collecting today to decrypt tomorrow already happened once, at national scale, then it's almost certainly happening to your data right now. What matters is what that does to the deadline you think you have. Step back and look at what all three of those stories have in common, because it's the same move every time. One side could read what the other believed was secret, and they won by never letting on. That's what cryptography has always really been about. exploiting the gap between what you can read and what your adversary still thinks is safe. The advantage lasts exactly as long as that gap stays hidden. Now put that on the quantum threat. Whoever first builds a computer that can break RSA and read the public key cryptography underneath the internet faces the exact choice the head of Room 40 faced in 1917. Announce it and every target hardens overnight. Or stay silent and read the world's secrets for as long as no one knows they can. History already tells you which one they pick. An academic who cracks the toy version might publish for the prestige, but the actor you actually have to worry about, which is a nation state or a serious adversary, has every reason to say nothing and keep reading what you think is safe. So the break happens quietly, exploited by whoever holds it, while your system keeps reporting green and your board keeps assuming the encryption is doing its job. A nation state is the most likely to reach it first and to keep it quiet, because it can see further than the rest of us. A serious state program absorbs everything the open research community publishes and then adds everything its own classified work produces on top of that. So the progress you can follow in journals and press releases is only the floor of what's out there. The real state of the art sits higher behind a classification wall you will likely never see past. So let me speculate for a second. It is entirely possible that a machine capable of breaking public key encryption already exists right now, inside a program we won't hear about for years or decades, if we ever hear about it at all. And I can't prove one does, but no one outside those classified programs could tell you if it did. So yes, the quantum computers we see in the open are nowhere near capable of this, but the open ones are the only ones we get to measure. The one that matters would be exactly the one you can't see. That's a fatal flaw I named at the start. Will act when quantum breaks encryption assumes you'll know when that actually happens. History says you won't. And once you accept that the alarm is never going to ring, your whole strategy has to change, because you can't time a defense to an event that you'll never see. 3 assumptions quietly sink a quantum strategy. Clear them and you're ahead of almost everyone. We'll get a warning. The warning is the one thing the winner is guaranteed to withhold. If it were broken, it would be public. The more valuable the break, the longer it stays buried. Zimmerman for weeks, Ultra for nearly 30 years, and Venona for around 50. This is spy stuff. It's not my problem. It stopped being spy stuff a long time ago. In 2012, NSA Director General Keith Alexander called the theft of corporate data, much of it traced to China, the greatest transfer of wealth in history. A quantum break is that on steroids. It cracks the public key encryption, protecting the entire internet at once. Your long-lived data sits in exactly that spot right now. All 3 share the same flaw. They wait for confirmation that, by design, never arrives. The line to take to your board is this. The day our encryption breaks, no one will announce it, so we cannot wait for the proof. We must plan against the exposure of our data instead of waiting for a headline that will never come. The winners of code breaks stay silent. That's the pattern, and it's about to repeat at a scale that includes your organization. So when is Q-Day was always the wrong clock to focus on. What decides everything is how long your data actually needs to stay secret and whether that's longer than the time you have left to transition. That's the next video, and it's the number that decides everything. When you're ready to turn this into a plan your board will fund, that's the work I do at Lamar Labs, and the link's below. I'll see you there.